Peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B, and I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. That is, we are the people who keep the train on the tracks in our artistry. Perhaps we're band leaders, or we're just members of the band, but we're the ones responsible for booking the gigs. We're the ones that pays the band, making sure that the rehearsals are scheduled or studio gigs are scheduled, marketing, website, anything that needs to be done to make sure that we're moving beyond the bandstand. Without our instruments in our hands, we're the ones after rehearsals are making sure it's on. We are EntreMusicians. Now today we're going to talk about overcoming rejection, because as EntreMusicians, this is a big one. And I want to talk about it right out the gate because we are just in a season where we've just received another rejection letter. So I want to tell you about that, and I want to talk about 4 principles in how you as an EntreMusician can overcome rejection. Number 1 is, it's not you unless it's you. Number 2 is, you are not your work. Number 3 is, the project wasn't yours in the first place. And finally, number 4 is, hey man, hey lady, you're working, okay? So we're gonna unpack that a little bit. Overcoming rejection. Now let me just tell you about this thing that just happened with me receiving this rejection letter. Actually, it was a rejection email. There is a movie that's playing nationally right now that we were, I would say June or July of 2017, invited to submit 3 tunes to. And we had a deadline of August 1st to get these tunes up and prepared. And that means from songwriting stage through recording and production to make sure that the film company had it for their consideration. I'm grateful that we were blessed to be a part of that process. And one of these songs was already written and we redid, but the other 2 we had to come up with from scratch according to their submission guidelines and how they wanted this character to play out. So, long story short, we did it. I believe we did it to the best of our ability, but at the end of the day, we received around November, right before Thanksgiving, this email that they were not going to use any of the songs. And because I had been through this process before, it wasn't as foreboding as it had been in the past. I'll tell you the very first rejection letter, this was about 100 years ago, back in the early 90s, 91, 92. Me and my producing partner at the time, Bub C, we wanted to be the next Jam and Lewis, the next LA and Babyface. And we decided to get all the songs that we had together during that time. Again, this is 91. Great stuff. Still great stuff to this day, but we sent it to Flight Time Productions. We sent it to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and it's like, yo man, hey, this is the best, this is the cream of the crop. And in that day, there was no MP3s to upload, there was no websites or anything like that, so we had to use a typewriter. So we typed the cover letter, man. We did everything to spec. We had I think we burned a CD. Yeah, I think we burned a CD at that time and had our best 5 songs on there. Boom. Maybe 12 weeks later or so, we get this package back from Flight Time Productions in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And man, it's on their letterhead and wow, inside, open up, man. Here we go. And it was a standard form letter on their letterhead looking nice and shiny. And it was, thank you so much for submitting your material to us. However, yada, yada, yada. And I remember having some mixed feelings about that moment because the first one was, wow, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, man, they heard our stuff. Ooh, that felt great. But of course, there was that drop that, well, maybe our stuff wasn't good enough or there was something wrong or, and so there was that little dip of depression that kind of set in. But I was talking to a musician who was far more advanced than I was, and he said, hey man, you don't even know if they listen to it in the first place. Well, what do you mean? I mean, here's the letter. Well, yeah, it's a form letter, but they receive submissions all the time. And by the way, did you ask permission to submit? Well, no, I just stuck the CD in the mail and shipped it off. Well, yeah, they're not gonna listen to that. You have to be invited to the party. So I learned some lessons there, and then 3 weeks beyond that, I was reading an article where, of course, this is being the early 90s, the golden age of samplers, and that record labels were being sued and different people were being sued for copyright infringement because of the fact that everybody was sampling everything. And so there was no real regulations in place at the time. So what record companies were doing was they were just rejecting everything that came in the house. They would take your CD or your cassette and they would throw it in the shredder and they would send out a form letter, and that was just the way it was. So I learned a valuable lesson about that. I want to tell you about another time that I was really hurt by rejection, but I'll wait for that so that we can unpack the 4 things that I told you about. Number 1, it's not you unless it's you. And that's something that you really have to get a grip on. Now, it's not you, so you can't take it personally. You can't take it like, oh my God, they're rejecting me. No, they're not rejecting you. And especially if you've done your absolute best. If you know everything was on point, you've submitted according to the guidelines because you got permission, and you made sure that the T's were crossed, I's were dotted, semicolons in place, the mix was fantastic, the vibe was there was energy, then it's not you. Unless it was you and none of those things were in place. I mean, the mix was terrible. The production was lousy. You didn't do your best. You cut corners. The grammar on your email was atrocious. Things like that, then absolutely it was you. So that's point number 1. It's not you unless it was you. Number 2 is your work is not you. And that's something that all musicians really grapple with because we can get very emotional about our music. I mean, we pour our heart into the production, the songwriting. We pour our blood into the presentation and the performance. We prepare ourselves for the audition and we get there with high hopes. And all of a sudden they're saying, well, yeah, thank you very much for coming in. We'll call you. You know, but you are not your work. That is your work. And just like you have to, at least from my perspective, being a father of 3 wonderful daughters, I mean, my daughters whom I love and pour into, and Lori and I have raised them and blessed them and encouraged them and pointed them in the right direction, but yet at the same time, we are not our children. Your song is not you. It is an extension of you, but you have to say, well, I need to treat it as a separate entity. And again, I cannot internalize the rejection because it was the song, or perhaps that song wasn't right for that particular project, which leads to number 3, that the project wasn't yours in the first place. Now, I am a man of faith, as I said before, and I believe that there are some things that are for you and there are some things that are not for you. So when I pray, God, your will be done, and then the door is closed on it, I can't be crying about it. Oh. That's me. And I think that you can share in that no matter what your worldview is. Either it was for you or it wasn't. And if you received a no, and sometimes even when you receive a no, that same producer may be thinking, that was good. I can't use it here for this, but maybe I could use it elsewhere. So you just move on because the project wasn't yours. Now here's an interesting thing that I want to explain about a situation that I was in whereby we had a great working relationship with this multi-Grammy award-winning artist. This is true story, no exaggeration. We had brought them to Youngstown for a jazz fest that I was blessed to be able to produce, and we developed a rapport, or at least I thought, and for the next 6 weeks our communication was that they were going to do a guest solo on a song that we had written, and we were preparing for our next CD. And so they had gave us their word that that's exactly what they were going to do. There was some international traveling that they did, and they were emailing saying, yes, we appreciate the track, we're absolutely going to do it. But when they landed back in the States, the conversation kind of changed. Even when we confirmed a price that was negotiated with their manager, I went home and told Lori, my wife, I said, well, look, we got to get this credit card because we don't have enough and we want to make sure that we can pay the situation off, and boom, then we'll be golden. It'll be ours, right? So again, that artist gets back to the States and emails us that they won't be doing the project. Their rationale or reasoning was their record company would not allow them to because they had been a guest solo on so many other projects. Now, I've heard that to be the case, but what I didn't understand was why it seemed like they were stringing us along. And that's how I felt. So I was meeting with one of my mentors, excellent guy. His name is Jim Kokenauer Sr., and I call him Dad, and I was explaining this to him over coffee, and I was going, well, perhaps it was that, you know, the Lord would not allow that to happen because maybe I would have been giving glory to this artist than giving glory to God because of their name being a part of it. Because I was looking at, man, the radio player is going to be absolutely outstanding. But his response was very interesting, and that's how come I wanted to unpack point number 3 a little deeper, was because he said, well, Jerry, I guess you could surmise that God was teaching you a lesson, but have you also considered that God may have been trying to teach them a lesson as well when they put their word out there that they were going to do something and then renege? And that hit me like, wow, you're right. God is trying to teach all of us something. And it wasn't but a month later that I found that there were 2 other musicians who reside in the same location as this Grammy Award winning artist. And they both told me, oh, they don't reach out to really anybody around here. They have their own stable of musicians that they work with. And although they know the caliber of musicians that we are, they won't lend a hand to help us up. And I thought, wow, you know, well, here's a pattern of behavior. And they told me some similar stories about this particular artist. So if that person would have made the guest solo on our product, then what would have happened subsequently? What could I have expected in the future? So it was like that was a lesson for me to help me to overcome the rejection, because I was really taking that in really hard. So to reiterate is the project wasn't for me. And I'm grateful that it wasn't because we moved on. And finally, the 4th one is, hey, yo, you're working. You are working. If you're getting a rejection letter, that means you're trying. That means you're going after it. That means you're doing it, right? Yes. If you're getting no rejection letters, have you sent something off? Have you been querying film companies, record companies, managers, venues? Have you been putting your music out there so that it can be rejected? And so that was the whole thing for me. It's like, wow, I got a folder, a nice folder of rejection letters. I've got some acceptance letters as well, but I got a nice folder full that gives me confirmation that, hey, Jerry, keep moving. And so that's what EntreMusicians need to do. We need to understand that it's not us unless it is us. That we are not our work. That the project might not have been for us in the first place, and at least we're working. And that helps to really overcome rejection that we can sometimes experience. Now, the EntreMusician.com, that's the website where the real work is done. There you'll find resources, again, which engage, encourage, and empower all EntreMusicians. Go there right now. Download a free copy of my ebook just for putting in your email address. My ebook is called 50 Engaging Ways to Turn Your Fans into Family. You will find some incredible tips that we've used, my band sound doctrine, we've utilized since 2002, and people from the early days still come aboard. We still dialogue with them because these tips work fantastically well. Is that a good thing to say? Yeah, I guess so. That we're going to use it fantastically well. All of our videos are sponsored by Vocal. Vocal is the only beverage on the planet that is created to soothe, refresh, and restore your voice. Go to drinkvocal.com. Now listen, when you get there, you're going to get a note from Jerry Thompson, the owner of the company, which is saying that they are dropping brand new product and relaunching Vocal this summer. But I just need to get it into your heads right now. This is Vocal. If you're a teacher, preacher, motivational speaker. If you talk all day like I've been doing or sing all night, which you guys don't want to hear me sing, you need vocal for your voice. Before we let you go, I want to spotlight an EntreMusician that is really doing his thing. He is like a little brother to me. We've worked together since 2009. He's an incredible spoken word artist. His name is Orlando, Orlando Watson. I'm gonna put his website link below so you can click on it and go to his stuff. Very musical. The brother is on point, and I know he's going to do excellent things in the future. Love the CD. I know you're going to love his music too. Hit him up, Orlando Watson, and check him out. I am Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. See you next time.
I remember when we first met, and you made eyes inflate with infatuation from the onset.